Hello there and welcome to my channel. My name is NonGone and I've never been really good at anything. I finally one day said enough is enough, and using the power of the internet and a little help from my friends, I decided to learn how to do stuff. And you can too. So today we're going to go on a little aquatic adventure. We're going to ride the River Wild. What's that mean? Well, I'm glad you asked because I'm going to tell you. We are going to get in a boat, in a vessel that is designed neither for two big dudes nor for a long river journey. And we're going to put two big dudes in it and take a long river journey. I probably should talk about the romantic side of this before getting into the practical aspects, and then we're going to go ahead and do the run. I have no idea how this is going to turn out, whether we'll succeed or fail, but what the heck. We will learn how to do stuff today. Ever since I was a kid, the idea of rivers has really held a great interest for me. It's very fascinating. Rivers are one of the most useful natural features to human society, and there's a reason why if you look at a map, most of the major cities that you see in the world have a river right next to it. It's good for drinking, sanitation, it's good for livestock, it's good for agriculture, it's good for irrigation of agriculture. And that's not even mentioning the coolest part, which is the transportation. The idea that you can stick a poorly made watercraft into a river and using only your wits and a little bit of time can pop up 1,000 miles away in a completely different location with nothing but stories to tell has always had an allure for me. So I've always wanted to do it. I've wanted to do it in a non-outfitter sort of way. And build a raft or use some sort of primitive craft and end up accomplishing something in terms of miles and distance. In addition, I live in a very cool place. It's called Akron, Ohio, which Akron, by the way, is Old Greek for Acme or Summit, and we are in Summit County, and it is aptly named because there's a continental divide that runs right through the city. And that makes it a really unique place because when it comes to rivers, because if you get in this little pond, this little lake right here, and put a boat in there and ride the current, you will end up in the Cuyahoga River, which will empty into Lake Erie, which ultimately will go over Niagara Falls, through Lake Ontario, and up the St. Lawrence Seaway, and you'll end up like in Newfoundland or Nova Scotia or somewhere up in northern Canada in the northern Atlantic. But what makes Akron unique, because most places, that's what rivers do, they flow to oceans. But what makes Akron unique is that just about a mile south of there, you can put your same boat in this little thing right here, which is the Ohio and Erie Canal. And it'll go about 2 miles south where it joins with the Tuscarawas River, which joins with the Muskingum River, which joins with the Ohio, then joins the Mississippi and ends up in New Orleans in the Gulf of Mexico. So within 1 mile, you could choose whether you want to go to Nova Scotia or New Orleans from Akron, Ohio, without any power or any gas or any vehicles or anything. And that's so super cool to me. That's so fascinating. What's even cooler is that at the end of my street is a tributary of the Cuyahoga, which means I could walk a boat from my house. It's right up there. It's like 500 feet. I could walk a boat up there, put it in the water, and ride it all the way to Cleveland and beyond. So that's the romantic side. Now we got to talk about the practical side. Unfortunately, we're not going to build a raft. We're going to leave that out, although I will do that if this is fun and y'all want to see it. Let me know in the comments. Maybe we'll take a bigger trip. I don't want to be too easy on us though, so I found this guy for $68 on Amazon, and this is a 14-foot, 2-person inflatable kayak. Should be a real fun vessel to be doing this in. It is only rated to 400 pounds, and I know for a fact E-Man and I alone, without our gear, are way more than that. So that doesn't mean it's the end of all things. It just means we got to test it well and make sure that it works. So we went out and did just that. Our fear was that we would get in and sink immediately to the bottom. And by and large, that is exactly what happened. Within seconds, we had water in the boat. Within a minute, it was like a foot of water. We were paddling frantically back to shore, trying to get out so we didn't have to swim. As it turned out, though, the boat was fine. I just forgot to put the drain plug in. So that's it. There's a little plug in the back for draining it when you're done. And I never put it in when we got back in the boat. So we dumped it out, put the plug in, took off, and by and large, it was perfectly seaworthy and a fine vessel. It steered well. So I think we got the boat. Let's do it. I'm only worried about three parts when it comes to this river, and that's the beginning, the middle, and the end. And they all got different things. It is kind of a monster when you're trying to figure this out. Primary concern with the beginning is the depth of the river. I unfortunately went out here to where the house is just ahead of time, and it's completely unnavigable. Yeah, as you can see from the video, there's too much garbage, too much deadfall, not enough water. We would basically just be dragging the boat along for like miles to get to a spot where it's deep enough to put in. We don't want to do that. I followed it a few more access points up, as you can see here, and it's still like less than a foot. So I don't know that I want to do that. But a few miles up, there's a little curve here right by a road, and I think there's even a little pull off there. And I think from that point, the gauge says it's 5 feet deep, and it just gets deeper from there. So I'm pretty comfortable that that's the best spot that we can go. The only downside is that I'm not 100% sure you're allowed to put a boat in right there. So we're going to be a little sneaky. We're going to go at dawn at like 6:30 in the morning. I'm going to partially inflate the boat. We're going to have our gear ready. And the idea is I'm going to pull it out of the car, pump it up the last few times. We're going to throw the gear in and go. Hopefully within a minute. Hopefully nobody that cares will drive by or see us. And once we're in the river, we're on our way. I mean, it's a waterway, so we should be good. Once we get in there, we should have nothing but like 4 or 5 feet with very little hazards. Of course, you got to keep your wits about you in case like a stick fell or a branch fell or something. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the first 12 miles. That brings us to the middle of the river, which is uncharted territory for me. I can see a broken dam at mile 29, a lowhead dam at mile 21, and a log jam at mile 13 from the maps. So we will be as prepared as we can. I'm going to have notes on all three of these hazards, and then check all the alerts the night before and hope for the best. We will keep our wits about us and stay close to the shore, and hopefully we won't have any horrible things happen. One note, the middle hazard on here is called a lowhead dam, and it doesn't look like much. Here's a picture of it. These things are called drowning machines, and rightfully so. I've read up on them. If you see a lowhead dam and it looks like this, don't try to go over it. Just don't. It's really, really good way to end up dead, even in a good kayak or canoe. And in this thing, of course, this is a no-go. So the last 6 miles, the end of the river, brings its own challenges. It is a shipping channel, and that means it is open to commercial traffic. So there's special safety rules you have to abide by. You have to be very, very careful of the large barges and freighters that come through. Our plan is to always scout ahead to find places we can get out, and if we see a commercial vessel, just get out ahead of time and let the thing go by. The only other concern with the bottom, as if that wasn't enough, is that the last 6 miles have little to no current as well as they empty into Lake Erie. And that means we're going to have to probably paddle our way to the mouth of the river. And again, our plan is to try to not be a hero. If we got to get out a few miles early, it's fine. But with any luck at all, we'll be successful, and we'll be pulling in about 3 or 4 for a nice, well-deserved dinner up here in the flats. Until then, stay bad, people.
On a cold and dreary Saturday at dawn, 2 intrepid adventurers began their journey and ended it about 6 hours later, I'm sad to report. We, in fact, did not make the flats. We made it 12 miles down the river and had to give up in Peninsula. We learned a lot, and we had a great time, which are really the 2 things we were shooting for. So definitely consider this a victory. So the first thing we learned is that this stretch of the Cuyahoga River is completely not navigable as well. It might say 4 feet, but it's really like 6 inches in 90% of it. There's trees down every like 200 feet. We probably had to get out of the boat 30 or 40 times in 6 hours. It was really, really frustrating. We had to keep our wits about us. We were paddling all the time, trying to avoid downfalls, strainers, trees, all that kind of stuff. Within 15 minutes, we had a hole which miraculously was not in an air chamber, as this little one right here, by the drain plug, strangely enough, which we already knew it'll take on about 6 inches of water and then equalize with the water outside and still float. So we decided to keep going. About a mile before Peninsula, though, we blew this guy in the bottom air chamber, and that really kind of rendered this boat unserviceable. So that's really what ultimately did it, but also the frustration from having to get out of the boat every like 5 minutes. The second thing we learned, you do not go as fast as you think you go on a river. We were planning on about 5 miles an hour, and we did 12 miles in 6 hours, which if you're not good at math, I'll tell you, 2 miles an hour was our average. And even when we weren't getting out of the boat all the time, we were still going very, very slowly. The third thing that we learned, and the most important thing if you're trying to do something like this, just because this is a national park water trail does not mean that it is safe or well documented. We went to get out at the most dangerous spot right over here in Peninsula. I went back to shoot this video. It was so obnoxious. And the trail map says portage left. So you would be getting out. We're coming from up here. You'd be getting out over here. As you can see, there's no place to get out of the river right there. The sign on the bridge of 303 says portage right, and all you got on the right is a 15-foot straight up bank leading to the towpath right there. So there's also no place to get out of the river on the right. What we ended up doing is getting out right up here in the middle of the frame there and shoving our boat vertically up this bank and scrambling up in our Crocs and Aqua socks. Fortunately, a helpful family helped us grab the boat and pull it over the rail so that we were safe. So despite all the danger and the hijinks and the work and everything that was there, I consider this 100% a resounding success as far as a trip goes. We wanted to feel like we were out in the wilderness and have a sense of adventure, and we definitely felt that. The river is very powerful. You are definitely the weaker of the elements in this equation, and we had to keep our wits about us for like 6 hours. We did pop up. It wasn't 1,000 miles, but it was 12 miles with nothing but stories to tell, and I'm really excited that I got to tell that story and share it with you guys on YouTube here. We also had very peaceful moments where we were just sort of floating down the river, surrounded by waterfowl. There were fish in the river, herons and wood ducks and mallards and geese, and even some bald eagles were like 50 feet away. So just absolutely incredible to be immersed in that type of environment and have that type of experience. In addition, I got to spend the entire Saturday morning with my best friend. E-Man has always been the Tom Sawyer to my Huck Finn. He's always been the Elwood to my Jake. We've gone all the way through high school and college and marriage and youth and our 20s and 30s, and now unfortunately half of our 40s together. And we've experienced some highs and some lows and some really crazy things and some really regular things. And E-Man, I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate that friendship, and I can't wait to do something else crazy. So in that vein, I'm going to get off the airwaves here and get on to my next adventure, and I will see you in the next video. In the meantime, stay bad, people. NonGone is gone.